Prabhuji. Thank you, Prabhuji. Hare Krishna. Hare Krishna, dear devotees, please accept my humble obeisances. All glories to Srila Prabhupada and Guru Maharaj. Today we are reading Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 7, Chapter 13, Text 23 to 34. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Narayanam Namaskritam Naram Chaiva Narottamam Deving Saraswatim Vyasam Tato Jayamudire Nastaprayesu Bhattresu Nityam Bhagavata Sevaya Bhagavate Uttamasloke Bhaktir Bhavati Nestiki. Text 23. My dear King, although you know everything, you have posed some questions which I shall try to answer according to what I have learned by hearing from authority. I cannot remain silent in this regard, for a personality like you is just fit to be spoken to by one who desires self-purification. Because of insatiable material desires, I was being carried away by the waves of the material nature's laws, and thus I was engaging in different activities, struggling for existence in various forms of life. In the course of voluntary evolutionary process, which is caused by fruitive activities due to undesirable material sense gratification, I have received this human form of life, which can lead to the heavenly planets, to liberation, to the lower species, or to rebirth among human beings. In this human form of life, men and women united for the sexual pleasure of sex. But by actual experience, we have observed that none of them are happy. Therefore, seeing the contrary result, I have stopped taking part in the materialistic activities. The actual form of life for the living entity is one of spiritual happiness, which is real happiness. This happiness can be achieved only when one stops all materialistic activities. Material sense enjoyment is simply an imagination. Therefore, considering this subject matter, I have ceased from all material activities and am laying down here. In this way, the conditioned soul living within the body forgets his self-interest because he identifies himself with the body. Because the body is material, his natural tendency is to be attracted by the varieties of the material world. Thus, the living entities suffer the miseries of material existence. Just as a deer, because of ignorance, cannot see the water within a well covered by grass, but runs after water elsewhere. The living entity covered by the material body doesn't see the happiness within himself, but runs after happiness in the material world. The living entity tries to achieve happiness and rid himself of the cause of distress. But because of the various bodies of the living entities are under the full control of material nature, all his plans in different bodies, one after another, are ultimately baffled. Text 31. Materialistic activities are always mixed with the three kinds of miserable condition: Adhyatmika, Adidaivika, and Adibhautika. Therefore, even if one achieves some success by performing such activities, what is the benefit of this success? One is still subjected to birth, death, old age, disease, and the reaction of his productive activities. The Brahmana continued, I am actually seeing how a rich man who is a victim of his sense is very greedy and accumulates wealth, and therefore suffers from insomnia due to fear of all sides, despite his wealth and opulence. Text 33. Those who are considered materially powerful and rich are always full of anxiety because of governmental laws, thieves and rogues, enemies, family members, animals, birds, persons seeking charity, the inevitable time factor, and even their own selves. Thus, they are invariably afraid. Text 34. Those in human society who are intelligent should give up the original cause of lamentation, illusion, fear, anger, attachment, poverty, and unnecessary labor. The original cause of all this is the desire for unnecessary prestige and money. Thank you, Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Yeah, thank you very much, Amangi Mataji, for reading today's Bhagavatam section translations. And thank you all for joining for today's Bhagavatam session. So today we'll read from Srimad Bhagavatam, 7th Canto, chapter 13, the behavior of a perfect person. And thank you, Sundarananda Prabhu, for giving this opportunity so that I can speak, share few words from Srila Prabhupada purports for my own purification. So we'll start with prayers. ॐ अज्ञानतिमिरान्धस्य ज्ञानाञ्जनशलाकया चक्षुरुन्मिलितं येन तस्मै श्रीगुरवे नमः। नमो विष्णुपादाय कृष्णप्रेष्ठाय भूतले श्रीमते भक्तिवेदान्तस्वामिनिति नामने। नमस्ते सारस्वती देवे गौरवाणी प्रचारिणे निर्विशेषशून्यवादि पश्चात्तदेशतारिणे। जय श्री कृष्ण चैतन्य प्रभु नित्यानंद श्री अद्वैत गदाधारा श्रीवासादि गौर भक्तवृंद। हरे कृष्ण 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 हरे हरे, हरे राम 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 हरे हरे। So this is a very wonderful section where we see many instructions from this great saintly person, Avadhuta Brahmana. Just to give a background, we are in the section where uh, discussions of Yudhishthira Maharaj and Narada Muni is happening. And Yudhishthira Maharaj, when he heard about the pastimes of or characteristics of Prahlad Maharaj, was very pleased. And then he inquired from Narada Muni about the actual religion of a human being and about the characteristics of Varnashrama Dharma. So in the last two chapters, we heard how Narada Muni explained about Sanatan Dharma. And then he also spoke about four Varnas like Brahmana, Kshatriya, Vaishya, Sudra. And then he also narrated about the four ashramas, the Brahmacharya, Grihastha, Vanaprastha. And in this chapter, we heard Narada Muni describing about the principles of sannyasa. And also, then he started narrating the pastime of this saintly personality, Avadhuta. So, in the last section, we heard from His Grace Chaitanya Charan Prabhu, nicely summarized how this pastime started. So, where one time in Prahlad Maharaj traveled all over the universe to study the nature of saintly personalities. And when he came near Kaveri river, then he found this saintly personality who was lying on the ground, covered with the dirt and dust. But he's spiritually very advanced. That's what Prahlad Maharaj noticed. Then he worshipped him, and then he inquired from him, like, mentioning that, so I see that you are not performing, or there is no endeavor from you to earn your daily income. And also at the same time, you have a fat body. So then he requested this Avadhuta Brahmana to clarify his doubt. So now we see that that Avadhuta Brahmana is started answering or giving explanation for Prahlad Maharaj's inquiry. So from the last two slokas it started. So now we'll continue from the 23rd sloka. So in the 23rd sloka, Avadhuta Brahmana is mentioning that, so my dear king, although you know everything, so you have posed some question, so let me answer. So how he is going to answer? What he learned from authorities. And he cannot remain silent when a personality like Prahlad Maharaj asks. And Prabhupada mentions in the purport that generally a saintly personality doesn't speak to anyone and everyone, and he remains silent. So unless a general, a common man who is showing some interest in understanding this spiritual subject matter, then the saintly personality will start speaks. Otherwise, generally is silent. Of course, the Vaishnavas, the devotees, they're very compassionate. So they go to ordinary common people and then start speaks about the philosophy of Krishna consciousness or the Vedic literatures. But in this case, Prahlad Maharaj is not an ordinary personality. So he's a Mahabhagavata. So since he is only inquiring, so this Avadhuta Brahmana, so he says that he cannot remain silent. So, and he's going to speak or answer his questions. And other thing Prabhupada stresses is that this Avadhuta Brahmana is saying that he is going to repeat what he learned from the authorities. This is another thing that one should follow. So because we cannot give answers whatever we think or some our what it comes from our mental concoctations. So it should be um, coming from authorities, or we should refer to Shastras. Uh, because with the knowledge that we acquire from our material senses, so most of the times are many times it may not be correct, especially in the spiritual subject matter. Because to understand the spiritual subject matter with our material senses is not possible. So that's why either we should refer Shastras or we should repeat the words that we heard from the authorities. Because the authorities, they refer the Shastras or they have the perfect understanding of the scriptures. So that's what this Avadhuta Brahmana is mentioning here. He is going to speak whatever he heard. So in the text 24, so he's giving the first thing like saying that because of insatiable material desires, so he is being carried away by the waves of the material nature laws, and thus he engaged in different activities. So struggling for existence in various forms of life. And Prabhupada mentions in the purport that so as long as a jiva, the conditioned living entity, has any material desires, then he has to go through from one body to another body. So that's called a struggle for existence. So if we have some material desire, then we perform some fruitive activity to fulfill that material desire. Then what happens that we will get a reaction. So due to that reaction, we should go through from one body to other body. So we have to go through the cycle of birth and death. So that's why Prabhupada stresses that so one should stop the material activities, especially when one got the human form life. So instead of utilizing our energy in performing material desires, we should utilize that energy in performing the spiritual activities. So we may have some material desires, but still, if we continue to perform or start performing spiritual activities, then that struggle for existence will be purified. Akama, sarvakama, moksha kama. So even though we have sarvakama, many desires, but tivrena bhakti yogana. So if we perform spiritual activities, then our struggle for existence will be purified. Our material desires will be purified, like Dhruva Maharaj. So he performed bhakti yoga for the to fulfill his material desire, to have the greater kingdom than his great grandfather. So not only he got greater kingdom, what he was looking for, but his desires, material desires are purified. And he went back home, back to Godhead like that. So in the text 25, this Avadhuta Brahmana is saying that in the course of evolutionary process, which is caused by fruitive activities, so he received this human form life. And from this human form of life, one can go to heavenly planets or liberation, or they can go back to lower species, or again in the human beings. And Prabhupada mentions in the purport very beautifully, saying that so based on the karma, so we are going through janma mrityu jara vyadi, like in a birth, death, old age, diseases, and continuing from one species to other species. So that's called evolutionary process. Of course, we hear the other evolution process, which is proposed by Darwin. So, like, a man came through the evolution process from monkey. So initially there are monkeys, and then through the evolution process, monkeys became half man, half monkey, and later then full man like that. Of course, there are many assumptions that Darwin has it, and Darwin also theory doesn't also explain whether a man can come back to monkey like that. So, but here we see that the Vedic literatures in this verse we see that full complete knowledge. So then through the evolution process, one received human form of life. Like we have 8.4 million species. So through the evolution process, one may receive the human form of life. Then once they get the human form of life, then there is a chance where they can go back, they can be elevated to heavenly planets, or liberation, Swarga, Apavarga. So they can go to Swarga by performing pious activities, or Apavarga. So they can go back home, back to Godhead by performing the spiritual activities. But if they don't utilize this very rare and important human form of the life, then they can be downgraded or degraded to lower species. So they can become cat or dog or pig or like that. So, or uh, whatever the activities that they have done, which are appropriate to take birth again human being, they'll also come back as a human being. So that's why Prabhupada stresses that. So because we have received this very rare and important human life, Dullabhama Anava Janama Satsange, and also we got the association of the devotees. So now this is the time where we perform spiritual activities, Krishna conscious activities, and then free from ourselves this miserable birth and death or the evolution process. So that is the an intelligent person should do it. Otherwise, as long as we perform our fruitive activities and in the control of the three modes, the material nature, if we associate with these three modes which are in this material world, then we continue our birth and death. Karanam guna sango asya sad asad yoni janmasu. Like we continue to go through from one body to other body. So instead we should, Krishna says that we should rise the above three modes. Nistraigunya bhavachuna. So that's what Prabhupada stresses, to utilize this rare and important human form of life, to rise above three modes and break the cycle of birth and death. Of course, I'm talking to myself. So that's what here also the Avaduta Brahmana is saying that, there is a option where we can go back home, back to Godhead, or we can be um, elevated to the higher planetary systems like that. And in this 26 sloka, we see that this human form of life, generally men and women come together for the sensual pleasure of sex. But actually, they were hoping for a happiness, but none of them are happy. So that's why this Avadhuta Brahmana is very intelligent. He's saying that seeing these contrary results, he stopped taking part of the materialist activities. So generally in this material world, the conditioned living entities feel the great pleasure in the opposite gender union, physical union. But the saintly personalities, since they experience um, great happiness by performing the spiritual activities, they consider this pleasure of opposite gender union is very insignificant. So Prahlad Maharaj says that, En maidhunadi gruhamedi sukham I tucham. He says that it is very insignificant because they are deriving great happiness through the process of bhakti yoga. Tushyanticha ramanticha. So they derive great pleasure. So we see that even Yamunacharya also, he mentions that whenever a thought of opposite gender union, physical union comes into his mind, then he spits it out because he feels disgusted. So, but the persons who are not in the path of bhakti, generally the men and women come together through the process of marriage so that they can get some happiness. But here we see that the result is reverse. So they don't feel that happiness. Instead, they go through the distress. Prabhupada mentions that, of course, as Kali Yuga progresses, generally the men and women come together through the marriage. For some few days or few years, they might be happy. Then they later, the actual problem starts. Then they start fighting each other for a small things. And sometimes it leads to the separation or divorce like that. So Prabhupada says that instead of unity and happiness, people go through the disunity and distress. So that's why the Vedic injunctions for the marriage. So the idea is that some man and woman come together and help each other to advance in the spiritual life instead of engaging in the unrestricted sexual enjoyment. Because Rishabhadev says that this opposite gender physical union is available in other living entities also, the lower species also. So that's why when one has this human life, they should not work very hard for this kind of sense gratification. Nayam deho dehabajam loke kastan kaman arate vidbhujam ye. We should not work very hard for the sense gratification that is available for dogs and pigs, which eat stool like that. Should be utilized tapodivyam putragayena sattvam. So we should be engaged our energy in the Krishna conscious activities. Wake up early and then chant our Hare Krishna Maha Mantra, 16 rounds, follow four regulative principles. That tapodivyam. We have to do that spiritual activities. Then what happens? Suddhya Dyasmat Brahma Saukyam Tvanantam. Then we become purified and then we experience that unlimited happiness. So that's why here this Avadhuta Brahmana is saying that seeing these counter results, he stopped taking part of the material activities. And what he is saying here in the next sloka, we see that the actual happiness is in the spiritual happiness. And this happiness can be achieved only when we stop material activities. So considering this subject matter, he ceased from all material activities and lying down there. So he's giving answer why he is lying down there, that because the actual happiness is in the spiritual activities, not in the material activities. So one should engage in the spiritual activities. Yes, we have to stop our material activities, but we cannot be inactive for a long period of time. So that's why our activity should be diverted to the spiritual activities. Then we can experience that unlimited happiness. So if we engage in our material activities, then it is karma bandhana. So like, it will bound us in this material world, and it will forces us to go through the birth, death, old age, disease like that. But we cannot stop we cannot be inactive. We cannot stay without doing any activities. That's why ignore the karma. So we have to perform our activities for the pleasure of the Supreme Lord or for the devotees like that. So that's what this Avadhuta Brahmana is saying. And he's saying that in 28th sloka, in this way, conditioned living soul living within the body forgets his self-interest because he identifies himself with the body. And because the body is material, the natural tendency is to be attracted by the varieties of material world. So that's why this is the cause for the suffering, our material suffering like that. So Prabhupada mentions that since we are pure spirit soul, part and parcel of Krishna, there is no question of suffering, because the nature of the spirit soul is Sachidananda, Ananda, always happiness. Because now we are identifying ourselves with the gross body instead of pure spirit soul, and we forgotten our relationship with Krishna. So due to this misconception, we are afflicted by all the bodily troubles like birth, death, old age, disease like that. Otherwise, for spiritual, there is no birth, death like that. And here, Avadhuta Brahmana is also giving an analogy. Example is saying that the deer, because of ignorance, cannot see water within a well covered by grass. He runs after elsewhere. So similarly, the living entity covered by the material body, he doesn't see the happiness within himself. So instead, what he is doing is running after happiness in the material world. And this is a nice example. So, and Prabhupada also mentions in the purport that so if we understand our real identity as a part and parcel of Krishna, and then we start exchanging our relationship with the Supreme Lord, then we will experience the full happiness, the unlimited happiness. Until that, if we are looking happiness outside the body, then we'll go through the miseries, like trying to acquire money, wealth, or name and fame. So those kind of things are great position in this material world. Then we'll continue to go through the miseries. Like we heard from Hiranyakashipu's example. So he has conquered all the three worlds, he has great comforts, but he's still dissatisfied because he is not connected to Krishna consciousness. So the real happiness will get when one starts performing Krishna conscious activities. And in the text 30, so this Avadhuta Brahmana is saying that the living entity tries to achieve happiness and rid himself of the cause of the distress, but because of the various bodies of the living entities, which are under the full control of the material nature, his plans are baffled. So we are trying to be happy, but we are looking happiness in a wrong place or wrong way. That's why all our plans, kriya, they are baffled. Moga krita kritaha, like that. So how we are trying to become happy, like, we are trying to enjoy bodily comfort through the economic development or some performing pious activities, so that we can go higher planet systems, like that. But by performing these fruitive activities, we are receiving reactions. So that due to that, we have to go through the different bodies. Sometimes maybe a demigod, sometimes pig body, like that. So that is the problem. So that is the cause of the suffering. So what is the cause? Because we haven't taken shelter at the lotus feet of the Supreme Lord. That's why we are under the control of the material nature. And the laws of the material nature is very strict. So it will push us through the uh, Janma Mrityu Jara Vyadhi, which are very suffering. So that's why Prabhupada stresses that as Krishna mentioned in Bhagavad Gita, Sarvadharman Parityajaya Mamekam Sharanam Raja. So if we take shelter of, at the lotus feet of the Supreme Lord, then we can be uh, relieved from all these miseries. So we should perform activities which are connected to that. And in the text 31, is saying that, there are more miseries he's talking about. We see that in this material world. So three kinds of miserable condition: Adhyatmika, Adi Daivika, Adi Bhautika, like that. So people who work very hard to achieve something, uh, going through this Adhyatmika, Adi Daivika, Adi Bhautika. So if they achieve something, what is the benefit? Because at the end, they have to leave everything. We see that, we come with empty hand and we go with empty hands. So even in the middle, if we achieve so much, so many things, what is the use? Because we are not going to take anything, and instead we are going to force ourselves to go through this birth, death, old age, disease, miseries. So this Janma Mrityu Jara Vyadhi is miserable. And on top of that, Adhyatmika, Adi Daivika, and Adi Bhautika. So there are three more miseries. So miseries, Adhyatmika means miseries that we experience through our body and mind. And Adi Daivika means miseries that are caused by the natural disturbance, like earthquakes, like that. And Adi Bhautika is miseries that we get through the other living entities. So that's why Prabhupada says, stresses here that so an intelligent person should not work very hard. So you work only as much as for the sake of keeping our body and soul together, but not works too much, too many hours, um, ignoring our the practice of Krishna consciousness. So in text 32, this Avadhuta Brahmana is giving example, like, a rich man, very greedy, accumulate wealth, but he suffers due to fear from all sides. This is another example. And of course, we see in the material world also, people work very hard and accumulate a lot of wealth, but then there is a fear. Whenever some other people may come and steal, or maybe wherever we deposit, that bank may, if it goes bankrupt, then we go through so much suffering. So all these kind of things. And Prabhupada mentions in the purport that sometimes these rich people, due to those fears that they lose this whatever they have earned, so they take sleeping tablets also, pills, so that they can sleep, which means that they are not sleeping very well also, like that. And although the Brahmana is continuing saying that who are considered material powerful, they are always anxiety, full of anxiety. because of government laws, thieves and rogues, enemies, family members, animals, birds, persons seeking charity, and also with their own selves. They're afraid. And Prabhupada mentions in the purport, because they are afraid themselves, because they have the fear whether whatever the money that they have earned, did they put it in a safe place or not. And also there are many other people who are trying to some or other take the money from him, either through the taxes by government or family members, relatives who wants to take advantage of him and tries to take some of his money like that. So that's why Prabhupada stress that yes, you have to earn money to maintain your family, but apart from that, we should also try to spend time, inquire ourselves, who am I, where did I came from, so where I am going to go after leaving this body, something like that. So we have to take a little bit of our time to practice this Krishna consciousness, because this is the real goal of the human life. So in the text 34, last sloka for today. So here he is saying that human society who are intelligent should give up the original cause of lamentation. And what is the original cause? The desire for unnecessary prestige and money. So unnecessary prestige and money. This Prabhupada mentions that this is a difference between the modern education and Vedic education. So the Vedic civilization is simple living and but high thinking. So they don't hanker for unnecessary prestige or money. Instead, they focus going back home, back to Godhead. So breaking the cycle of birth and death and relieved from all the fears or miseries. But the modern education instructs or inspires us to for more money, more prestige, good, great position like that. This is simply living and no thinking. So, so if we go through that process, then our real goal of the human life will be spoiled, and then we'll continue life after life, going through the janma mrityu jara vyadi adhyatmika adi devika adi bhautika miseries, and we continue to suffer and stay in this dukkhalayam, so the suffering place. So that's why here the Avadhuta Brahmana is stressing that intelligent person should take out some of his time, as Acharyas prescribed, practice this Krishna consciousness of chanting Hare Krishna Maha Mantra, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare, and perfect or make this human life, which is very rare and important, successful, and go back home, back to Godhead. So of course, I'm talking to myself. So thank you all for joining. I'll pause it here for today. Grandhara Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Ananta Koti Vaishnava Vranda ki jai. Thank you. Hare Krishna.
Thank you very much, Prabhuji.
Thank you, Prabhuji. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji.
Yeah, thank you so much, Prabhuji. Hare Krishna.